Welcome to For the Record, an unfiltered view on current trends and timeless advice for surviving in the aesthetics industry. Whether you're an injector, practice owner, sales rep, or marketer, it's time to set the record straight. Each week, we cut through the chaos and showcase diverse perspectives and winning ideas from the best minds in the industry. I'm your host, Dr. Tiffany Hall, Chief Growth Officer at Aesthetic Record. Now, let's get started on this week's episode. Hey guys, welcome back to another week of For the Record, your unfiltered view on surviving in aesthetics. And today we have a very special guest in studio in our new office. We have Lindsay Hatley, a nurse practitioner from Dallas, Texas, who owns HUSH MedSpa, which has become a really big, exciting, growing, and expansive brand in our market. She has 5 locations currently open and going to open 2 more, maybe even 3, coming very, very soon. She also has a lot of training, so she's going all over the country training other people. They're coming to see her inside of her med spa. And she's also just on the circuit. Social, has a life, doing fun things. I see your name everywhere. So we have her here today in studio with us. Welcome, Lindsay.
Thank you for having me.
We're so glad that you're here. So we're going to start off with just a little bit about you, about your background. Yeah. And I know that you're from Neonatal Nursing. So you didn't start in aesthetics. I think no one actually starts in aesthetics anymore. No. Not even a thing yet. How did you end up in medicine, period?
So I always knew I was going to go into medicine somehow. I actually started like pre-med and then went to nursing and went straight into NP school. And so I was a neonatal nurse practitioner for like 12 years, working 24-hour shifts, which I loved the job. I loved the profession. I loved my clients and the parents, but I always had like a special bond with the moms because it was such a challenging time for them to leave their newborns, at the hospital with me. So I realized working 24-hour shifts with my littles once I was going through my divorce wasn't going to be very ideal as a single mom of 3 boys. So we were just talking about Kim Welch, but I went to her for a consultation and we started talking and then I started thinking about it. And so I trained with her and it was her that was like, I think you've got an entrepreneur in you need to kind of do your thing. Cause I wanted to work with her. So, but she gave me the push. So here we are. 3 years ago, I opened HUSH MedSpa and we started first in Frisco. I started with no clientele. Like I just jumped all the way in, cold feet. And now we have, like I said, 5 locations. So we're in Frisco, Midland, Scottsdale, Arizona, Miami, Florida, and Chicago, Illinois.
So they're everywhere, not just like in one geographical location, but sort of spread out everywhere, which we'll talk about in just a second. Yes. We'll get way into that. But back to neonatal nursing, I can't imagine as a mother, because you're also a mom too, that's got to be a heart-wrenching job. So I would think even mentally getting out of that had to be a bit of a, take a deep breath because I can't imagine going through it. But you have little boys at home at that point. You're getting a divorce, so I understand that wholeheartedly. So Kim pushes you, but what makes you decide, you know what, I'm going to actually open a business? Like, even not working for Kim or somebody else, that's a big choice to say, I'm going to go into aesthetics and figure this out, or I'm going to open up my own business and give it a go. It's a pretty big difference there.
Oh, yeah. Everybody thought I was crazy.
I'm sure that they maybe still think you're crazy because
they definitely do. Yeah. It's kind of hard for people to see my vision, but I always knew I wanted to build a business. And when I started to get into aesthetics, my first thing was I wanted to be an expert. So I sought after the best in the business and I trained with them. So like I said, Kim Welch, I went to Norway and trained with Julie Horn. I've trained a couple times with Shelby Miller. I adore her. But she really also helped me because she's super business savvy and just an amazing woman and a great mom. And so she inspired me. But when I went to shadow the consultant clinic in London, it changed my whole perspective on aesthetics. Because initially I thought I wanted a med spa, I wanted the lasers, I wanted all these services. And when I went to the consultant clinic, they had their niche. They were all filler, mostly lips. And it was just one room, one doctor at a time, no assistant, no checkout person, just in there doing great filler work, just great aesthetics. And so they had 12 or 13 now international locations. And I was like, I could do that.
Sure.
Why not?
I could do that. They have one actually in the U.S. in Beverly Hills, New York and Beverly Hills. It goes back and forth, but very similar. Yeah. He's a one-man band.
Yes.
And I have to think from a profitability standpoint, as I think about businesses, obviously in AR, we work with companies who have so much overhead and so much HR. They have people to do everything for them. And I think to myself, where's your profit going? you're eating it up with the front desk girl, the checkout girl, the MA, the person who mixes your sculpture for you, the person who holds your hand when you're injecting and holds the gauze. I'm like, my God, where does the money go? So
Yes.
I think it's a genius idea to kind of cut the, not the fluff guys, I don't mean that, but cut
Right.
some of the additional overhead and focus on the core people.
Yes. Yeah. And so my plan was I do travel to all of our locations and get them up and running and bring the clientele because I am the face of the business at this point. But I've hired some really great injectors and they have experience, but then my thing with them is I train them extensively so that everybody is doing it the HUSH way. So then I will help them each get their locations in their cities going and eventually won't be traveling as much. So I kind of jumped off with a few at the same time. But I always do that. I always go big and fast. So, but the plan is to get these settled and then just take like one at a time and really get it going and get that injector going well. But yeah, we just one injector and one esthetician. So we do filler, toxins, threads, and then all facial services. No lasers, nothing extra.
Well, I'm sure that your supervisor requirements, because you have to have a collaborative physician here in Texas. I think in other places like Arizona, you don't have to, but here you do.
Right.
So I'm sure that helps a little bit with the medical director part of it. It's like, we're just doing filler and toxin. This is an easier thing to do. So
Yes.
hopefully
Yes.
it's less confusing. But as I think about you going fast and furious to build lots of them at the same time, you mentioned doing it the HUSH way.
Yeah.
So here's our first controversial question of the podcast. Would you rather hire an experienced injector or have someone who has raw talent and train them to do it your way?
Absolutely raw talent.
Okay. Tell us more. We're all dying to know.
Yeah. I think, in my opinion, what makes a really good injector is somebody who's not overly confident, right? If you don't go to work every day and you're nervous, you're going to make a mistake. And so I can tell right away if they're overly confident, and that makes me nervous, because safety is so important. And especially, like when you're building a business, you want to make sure that when you're not there holding their hand, they're going to be as cautious as you want them to be. So, and I definitely think the raw talent because they're excited and they're ready to learn. And then we can really make sure that we're all injecting the same way and getting the same results, as opposed to if you have a bunch of people from lots of different backgrounds and everybody does their thing a little different. And I think when I say the HUSH way, like I said, I think a big part of my success and as an injector was I trained a lot with a lot of our greats, and I took a little bit from every one of them, and now I have my way, so the HUSH way. But I definitely agree with raw talent. They're teachable.
And I think too, I've interviewed a lot of people who own multiple locations, whether for the podcast or other things. They talk about this a lot. Like this is the recurring theme of, I've talked with Crystal Durnan, who has Of Me, her and Dr. Mark McKenna, Jubilee, we had Sarah Allen on last week, and people who own lots of med spas will say you have to find your own way, and you have to you can't really trademark it per se, but in a sense you are. It's like if you come here, we're going to guarantee you that it looks and feels the same way no matter where you go. I always use the McDonald's example. The fries taste the same in every state and every country in the world.
Absolutely.
I think it's important. But you mentioned going to Julie Horn. So people are probably dying to know about how that experience works in Norway. Tell us a little bit about the Julie Horn experience.
Julie Horn changed my life.
Shout out to Julie.
Yes, I love her. First of all, she's just sweet as pie. I love her to death. But she's so knowledgeable. And I do, my training, I really based it off of her way of training because I know she's been doing a lot online now since the pandemic and everything, but to be there with her in person was just such a game changer because she eludes confidence, and to be able to watch so many other injectors because the way she does it is there's 10 of us. So it's not one-on-one, so to speak, but there's 10 of us and we watch everybody inject it. And so you see the technique and you see her correcting them, each person differently. So you've had 10 different trainings by the time you're done. But yes, she changed my whole lip game for sure.
And then the consulting clinic, which is obviously a major powerhouse in the industry. I've had several friends that have gone over there and said that one's also just a game changer.
Game changer.
What obviously
Brilliant.
Influenced your decision on HUSH and how you were going to build things.
Yeah, I literally owe it to her, really. Her business plan was flawless to me. It just made so much sense because the overhead, and I think that, we know that. That's why a lot of our med spas don't succeed past year 3 because they can't get over that expense overhead and they bite off too much. And there's so many exciting and wonderful things in this aesthetics industry. We want to do them all. But really, I think the key to success is just finding what you're good at and perfecting it. and then scaling.
And then if you're cash positive at that point and want to add on lasers and devices, you can.
You can.
I was talking to a customer, an AR customer a few weeks ago who's brand new med spa. And they are going to, within week 1, buy like cold sculpting. They're going to buy an M-Sculpt. They're going to buy like an IPL. They're going to be $500K in debt with laser devices, energy devices of some sort in week 1, not counting the first personnel cost, the first filler toxin cost, building equipment, med mal, nothing. And I'm thinking to myself, holy freaking cow. Like I don't have the balls for it. I don't have the stomach for it.
No. Well, and thankfully, like I didn't have the means for it.
Right.
So because I was in the middle of the divorce, I couldn't go get a loan. So I had no business funding, no backing. I was literally like buying a little bit of product and then reinvesting the product. And I made a comment to the girls at work the other day. I'm like, well, as we expand, the only paycheck that gets cut back is mine because everything I make is like after the business is taken care of. And you have to have a long-term idea. And, I sat down with my boys because I'm very close with my boys and they're super athletes and they're very involved and we're very close. But I had to have a conversation with them. I said, this summer is going to be really crazy. Mommy's going to be gone a lot more. I'm going to miss a few games. I don't miss games. So they're like, that was a big thing. But I'm like, but when school starts, then I'm going to be home again. And we just have to take, we have to look forward to what mom's trying to build. And so now they get it. They're like, are you going to work? And then before it would be like, you're going to Chicago because I'm going to Chicago in the morning. And now they're like, oh, mom's going to work. We'll see you Wednesday. But they had to buy in because it's important. Like your family, they have to support you. Otherwise, you just have that mom guilt. Even though they do support me, I still am like, oh.
It's over. It crushes my soul.
It's
had
overwhelming.
my little boy is just turning 8 this week, and we just had his birthday party. And I spend probably 10 times more than I should, do more than I should because my mom guilt is overwhelming.
Yeah.
How old are your boys?
7, 8, and 14.
So you're right at the same age as me, and it's so hard. I'd left a job, where I was traveling 200 plus days a year because I was going through a divorce as well. And it's like, I've got to see my son.
Yeah,
luckily with AR, I'm able to stay home more, pick and choose my travel according to their schedule. But even now, he's like, Mom, you didn't come to my soccer game. You don't support me. Yeah. I'm like, hey, thanks for the guilt, buddy.
Yeah.
But it's still overwhelming. But when you're building a business, people have to sacrifice. Yes. I mean, all the way around.
It's those tough lessons that they're learning from us, it's just like what everybody says. They do what you do. They don't do what you say.
Right.
So you can tell them to be disciplined and motivated and have goals, but you have to show them. So really, I do this, like I'll tear up when I talk about my kids, but
it's okay, guys. We don't have any we have no tissues here on set, but we'll grab some.
Yes. So I do it for them, for sure.
Yeah. I finally someone else who knows the mom guilt. I know it all too well.
Oh, it's real.
It's very real.
It's very real.
Well, we're going to go to a different topic now so you can recover. Thinking about you, mom, neonatal, going into aesthetics, you're like a business maven now. And I went to business school and know people who did as well who still can't do what you're doing, who have had formal training. Yeah. So how did you figure out how to be like this rock star entrepreneur? Is it just like divine intervention or what?
Well, lots of mistakes. And grace.
A great teacher.
My very best friend is very business savvy and she's high up in the corporate world. And she would ask me like business questions. I'd be like, huh? What? She's like, how do you not know that margin? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just figuring it out as we go. But she's given me some advice and then just, mentors. My medical director, Dr. Eric Kavash, he's been great for me. Also, I work with Dr. Vuho, who's a plastic surgeon. He's like super
we also
sweet.
Love.
Yes, he's such a sweet man. And so I will talk to him about things often. But I think the biggest thing is just being okay with making the mistake, right? And I've learned a lot over the last 3 years, and I have a lot more to learn. But I have to slow myself down because I'm literally a hard and fast. And so I have to kind of pep talk myself like, okay, slow down. I wanted to get Atlanta and Dallas like right now, but I'm like, let's just wait another month.
What I think too is you get one off the ground running and successful. Then you go to number 2, and then as you keep going, the challenges become different. It's much harder to run 3. It's like having kids. When you have 3 kids, 1 is 1, 2 is a million, 3 is like good luck.
Yeah,
it just keeps getting more and more complex as you go.
Absolutely.
And you've got different different time zones, different geographies, different laws per state. We had a big discussion about that last week. Every state has its own compliance regulatory issues. You got to know all that stuff. I'm sure you have a legal team that's
Yes.
buttoning up for you constantly.
Definitely.
Which, as I say every single week, guys, get an attorney.
Yes.
Get a legal team.
Yes.
You cannot live without it.
That was the first tool. Now, Paige, my assistant, was my first immediate need. She saves my life. But getting an attorney and like an accountant and a bookkeeper to help me with the financial part of it, because that I am like a visionary. Like I have a vision and I know how to get there, but you need the support. And so it's like finding out which support pieces are the most important. That's been a big game changer for me, is getting their support to be like, no, we got to do it this way. Being open to it.
You mentioned your assistant. So tell us about delegating, because that's, I think, the hardest thing for anybody who owns a business or who goes from being a provider to an owner, because now the whole game changes. How are you about delegating?
Not very good. I'm getting better.
I don't think anybody's good.
No, especially I think most nurses and I think medical providers have a hard time delegating because we're just nurturing and care providing. You know what I mean? So it's like kind of like my mom things. I had to learn how to delegate mom stuff. And when I hired Paige, I actually was like, I needed somebody for everything. I need somebody to help get my boys' schedule organized, some things around the house, and a lot of like help at work. But then when she came on board, she took on like all of our social media and our TikTok, and she's just changed our business a lot from that perspective. So that's really, she came on for one thing, but she found her niche. And so now that's kind of her thing. Now we need to find somebody that's going to help me like kind of with like the admin part, because with me traveling, that is, I feel like we've found is our hardest. That's the biggest piece we're missing. When I'm not in the office, so many loose ends don't get fixed because I'm not there to tie them. I need somebody. That's like the next step of delegating.
Yeah, actually, just this morning alone here, there were like 15 things that only I could figure out, or like crisis situations. Monday morning at AR is always a crisis of some magnitude. And I think about all the things that were on my list to actually get done this morning, and not one flipping thing got done. Not one thing I had to do today got done because of, life. Life happens. So I can't imagine with all this scale and the traveling that's happening as well.
Yeah.
So how many days a week are you actually in the clinics injecting versus traveling and
So
allocations?
I am injecting 6 days a week, but 2 of them are travel days. So I kind of just got more of a regular schedule. Like I will fly out tomorrow morning, Tuesday mornings. I will inject all day at Chicago, stay the night. I'll inject all day Wednesday in Chicago and catch one of the evening flights home. And then I'll be back in clinic on Thursday.
I ask because I think people who scale forget about that. Forget about the travel and the fact that when you start to scale a business, you can't be in your location every day anymore.
Yeah.
And so you've got patients who are waiting to get, I'm sure your wait list is long. They can't see you. They're mad because you're going to Scottsdale or Chicago, wherever else. You have now clients in those locations too. So I'm sure that's going to be a very challenging part of your job now as well.
Yeah. I will tell you though, like my clients and my patients and my friends that are coming to me in Frisco, most of them came to me when I was in the middle of like the worst season of my life. Divorce is just miserable. And starting a business on top of that is also kind of crazy. But so I get a lot of support from them. Like they will message me or come in and they're like, you go girl, like you are doing it. So they don't get as frustrated because I've built that relationship. And I think when we talk about success, that's another part that's been really helpful in my business is relations. Like I love all my clients. I know everything about them. We talk about, it's like you're a therapist. It's like your hair lady, So building those long-lasting relationships is what sustains business.
Well, and as I think about too, the same, scale is like the enemy of that, right? The more you scale, the less you have time to do relationships. But I think in a medical spa place, whether it's all the devices and things, or you're just doing injectables, whatever it is that you have, the relationships are critical because patients have so many choices now. Like they have choices everywhere. There's a med spa, I think in Dallas, DFW on every corner.
Everywhere.
Arizona is not much different, I'm sure. That they have to find a reason to fall in love with you and to believe in you. And I think about social media and TikTok. That's what's so great about social media is they now can learn about you and fall in love with you and never even see you. Like I'm sure they come in and ask about your kids, not even knowing who you are yet because they know you on Instagram.
Absolutely.
It's got to be helpful. But how do you spend, like, is it your consultation that gives you the access to do that, or just over the years you've had relationships? How does that work?
I do focus a lot on my consultation. In fact, we call it a get to know you session. And so I'm big on educating. I love to train other injectors, but I really love to educate my clients and patients on what's happening. You know, that they see surface level and they come in and they point at something, and immediately as an injector, you're thinking about why that's happening. So I do spend a good time educating them, and I think that sets up expectations so they're happier, because setting up realistic expectations eliminates frustration.
Yes, we should say that again about 4 times. Sculpture booty being a big one. 4 miles, guys, isn't going to give him a Beyonce butt. It's not going to happen.
No.
I had that discussion this morning with somebody. But we're going to move right along and think about training, because you mentioned educating is one of the things you like to do.
Yes.
So you're now doing the training on your own. You are the trainer.
Mm-hmm.
And I see on your website, if you guys don't know, is it hushmedspa.com?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go there if you haven't seen it yet. But you have multiple packages. You've got multiple options for training. Before we go into kind of what you offer, how did you come up with this idea to have like a structured, formal program? Because people don't do that, right? They just say, I'll come train you. I'll show up with a few products. We'll inject. It'll be great. But you're doing like a program.
Yes.
So take us through that.
Well, Shelby Miller helped me that a lot, because she does something very, very similar. And so I don't try to recreate the wheel. I knew that was working for her. So I kind of mimicked that. And there's just different ways of getting into it. And some people that have experience injecting, they just want to come and see how I'm doing it. So that's why we started the professional shadow day, which is also like the consultant clinic. That's what I did there. I didn't actually inject there. I just watched, but I got the business training without even knowing that's what I was going for. And then I just tried to break up the other 2 to basic and advanced, because there's a big difference, like tear troughs and cannula. That's and threads. That's advanced. You don't jump off doing that right away. So I started with the basic that will just get their feet wet, and then I'm like 6 months later, you can come back and you can do the advanced, and we can critique or change it and detail it for whatever they're looking for. But that gives them a guideline. So they, again, realistic expectations.
I love the shadowing. I know Dr. Doan in Atlanta does it all the time. She's always on Instagram with her shadowing program, and I think that's what people are missing. I think the need to learn injections is obviously there, very big in the industry. No one's denying that, but I think the business part rarely ever gets taught. People don't focus on the business part. They don't focus on how the workflow should work in the practice, operationally speaking. I know even with AR, we try to train them on front desk checkout flow, and they're like, nope, I want to talk about Botox. Like, no, you gotta check people in and out. It's really important to learn that process too,
Yes.
and they don't learn it. So I think the shadowing is huge. Do you have people who are like signing up for that all the time, or
Yeah.
how does it fit into your clinic? As a
Yes.
person who's the actual trainer, how does it fit into your workflow every day?
Well, and it's gotten crazy because I've hired on, the new injectors for the locations, and again, trial and error. My first training for our Scottsdale injector, I went to Scottsdale thinking we'll get training clients to come in there and they can be her clients, but we didn't get as much interest. So I just get immediate interest in our Frisco location. As soon as we post something, it's booked. So it's easier to come and do it here. And then they do see the flow of our office. But when we get to the new clinics, we start each one with like a salon suite. So very small, one room. And then their expectations of growing into a bigger office where there's 3 treatment rooms is how we get them training on that. But when it comes to scheduling outside injectors that are not HUSH employees, that's been getting a little pushed to the back because we're trying to get them off. I can't do it off. It's just me. Yeah. So I typically only take Sundays off, but I've taken on a couple of outside injector trainings on Sundays just so I can fit them in.
Do you hear that, guys? You're not going to have a 40-hour-a-week day job. It's not the same in aesthetics.
Oh my gosh.
I have people who all the time say, I'm going to work 30 hours a week and I'm going to be successful in this industry. I'm like, you're not. You're just not if you want to be a trainer and open businesses and do. If you want to be a provider at a clinic, you could probably do that. I'm sure. I know you can, but to do all the other stuff, just doing your paperwork as an owner takes the whole day.
Yes. That's what I'm feeling the most. I'm missing by traveling is I don't have my office day to catch up on stuff. But I think it's an important thing for injectors to see on a professional shadow day because they can find out all the stuff. It sounds wonderful. I'm going to open a business. I'm just going to get a salon suite. I'm going to buy some product. I'm going to pay some training, and they're going to come in. That's just not the way it is. It's totally different. And you have to have a certain mindset to be a business owner, I think, especially in aesthetics, because we don't have business. I don't have any business background. I just kind of learned it as I go. And you have to have tenacity to get through that part. And a lot of us, I always say, I'm like, if I wasn't where I am now, it would be so much easier to just go to Dr. Ho's office every day and inject his clients, and go
100%.
home and be done, shut it off. But
And one day she'll sell this thing out and she'll go do that, but not
Exactly.
today. But not today. Well, with that in mind, so controversy number 2, second question here. Thinking about your injectors who are in these locations, are you expecting them to hustle their own clients? I use the word hustle. You guys know that. I don't mean it like literally, but to recruit their own clients, or does HUSH as an organization, a corporation, do the marketing for them?
we do both.
Okay.
And I have that very honest conversation with them because I can spend thousands of dollars on marketing, and we know that that's just not going to stick anywhere. You might as well just throw your money up in the air and let it fly wherever it wants to go. It has to be very intentional. So we do marketing for them, but I have set up a program. We call it the HUSH Hostess. That's how I grew in Frisco. And it's basically like a disport party. You ask all your family and friends to have a party for you, and you get 10 people in there, and we incentivize the hostess, and we sit there and we educate, and we have a get to know you session with all 10 people. They're going to build that relationship with you. You can do their disport at that party. If they want filler, they can buy it and come back later. But that's how I grew. I'm like, if you had 10 parties in a month, that's all you worked. You have 100 new potential clients.
And because they're going to get asked this, are they coming to the locations for those events, or are they going to people's houses?
Well, we do either. It works better in our Frisco location because we have a nice office and a waiting area. So it works better in Frisco for them to come here. But when I started and I was in a salon suite, you don't want 10 ladies in a little salon suite and everybody talking. And also, most people don't want to hear what I'm going to recommend. It's kind of a private thing, which is why we named our business HUSH, because people don't want to talk about that. So we do a little bit of both.
Well, and I was thinking about this, if the haters are listening, you can do concierge medicine at home beautifully. We had Sarah Ellen on last week talking about I can create a safe environment anywhere.
Absolutely.
Now, she does say event, she doesn't say party, but it's all the same thing. But she's like, people get so up in the air about these parties and things in people's homes, but you can be just as safe in a house as you can be in 4 walls. So.
Absolutely. And a lot of our event is focused on, I like that. That's much better, actually.
You call it, really, but.
It's mostly on education and getting to know them so they feel comfortable with you. Definitely, we do not do any filler there just because I try to keep it to 2 hours. You can't do filler for 10 people safely and perfectly, in 2 hours. So, but disport is a little bit different. It's a little quicker. But the most important part about that event is spending that 15 minutes with that new potential client on getting to know them.
Yeah, because when they decide to get filler, they're going to come back to that.
They're going to come back.
Provider. I think it's a great idea because again, that's like scale as well, right? You're scaling one patient visit to 10 and doing it within a 2-hour period.
Yes,
which is awesome. So as you think about product, I'm asking all the crazy questions here. Are your locations? Are you doing everything centrally at headquarters? I'm guessing in Frisco, and then you're shipping things out and doing different things, or are they almost like their own little self-contained business or little franchise in each market?
Oh, for now, we're all sent out. Everything's out of corporate in Frisco. So I travel with my product. So everything is coming out of here. But the plan is to get them big enough to where they are all, more like a separate entity. But as we grow, they're all one.
Well, I think about we've got a couple of accounts that have giant, I guess you'd call them concierge. They're doing 60, 70 people who are all over the place. And that's always the biggest struggle is inventory of how do you get inventory to these people who are in these different locations and keep it controlled, like tightly controlled so that it doesn't grow legs and walk away, as we all know sometimes things do. But I feel like that's a big challenge.
Yeah.
Especially with buying quantities and who gets your Spire points, who gets your Spire rebates, and it's just so many things that people don't even think about as business owners.
Well, thankfully, we've got an amazing program called Aesthetic Record. And it helps.
Shameless plug.
No, it totally does. And I'll be honest, I've researched all kinds of softwares because I knew once we scaled, it had to be perfect, right? So that's the best thing about your program is you can have multiple locations on the same account and the inventory tracking. It just sends me an email. Oh, we're low in Miami. Okay. Otherwise it's just another thing that I have to be thinking of.
Yeah, and I promise we're getting better. So
no, it's good. I mean,
it's getting even better.
Yes, it gets better every month for sure.
Yeah, we're working tirelessly, just like you guys are. I'm sure it's constant evolving. I think that's one thing people forget about when they own a business is you may start at point A, but by this time next month, you could be totally different. You might have evolved to a whole new thing. You may have changed the procedure process. Like, how do you guys do you focus on patient feedback, provider feedback? How do you make your decisions to change and stop and grow and do?
patient feedback is big. And that also brings me to like branding. Everybody knows what they're getting when they come to each location. They're exactly the same. So our branding is huge, and it's a very welcoming, comfortable environment. So that helps. But our social media is a game changer because they already know what to expect when they come in. And now that they know that they're going to get the same, because when you scale and you're the face of the business, most people want to book with Lindsay Hatley. But I'm like, no. She's just as good as me.
Well,
So
that's the big one.
Yeah.
Dive into that, because I think that's one of the things. I talk about this too, and I'm sure anyone who's heard me talk about things like, don't put your name on the door. You didn't. Your name is not on the door.
Mm-hmm.
Hush is on the door, but you're inadvertently, in a sense, the billboard of the
Right.
whole company. How do you start to pull yourself out of it? Like you just said, no, book with her. How are you getting patients to understand that everyone is just as good as you are? We're all trained the same. Because that's a tough thing to do for patients. Because they love you. They want to see you.
Right. It is. I focus a lot on the trainings, and I think when people see that you're training other people, inadvertently, they're more confident in you, because if I'm teaching somebody else how to do it, I should be pretty confident in how I'm doing it. So I think focusing on the training, and we post a lot about the training day, like, oh, we have a big training day. We're training our new injector. And then right away, we're showing her before and afters from that exact training. And so when we post a lot of our images, now you can see which injectors is doing it, because a lot of places that I've followed won't put their name on it because they don't want the competition between injectors. But my idea is exactly the opposite. No, we're all really good. So yeah, this one was Melissa, this one was Brooke, but we're all good. So you're going to get the same experience.
I think that's huge. If you're listening and you're a place with multiple injectors, I think that's, especially if your name is on the, you're the person. You've got to attribute those B&As to other people. Because otherwise, I do have a clinic, I won't name any names, who one injector does all the before and afters. Like, only one person stuff ever gets posted. It has to be just one injector. And they kind of advertise it as if it's everyone. But they take their best injector and they use that person for all the B&As. To me, that's like a truth in advertising issue. It's like, no. If you're going to go to Sally or Kara or Jane, that's actually Joey's work. Like,
Yes.
none of those people have done anything on the Instagram yet. This is all someone else's
very
work.
true.
And it makes me, I want to tell them, like, I think this is a really bad choice. I think you should be putting on a realistic preview of what they're going to get in the room with Kara or Sally or whoever else. I think it's a dangerous place to be. But I love that you're putting their names on there. You should. It's great.
It's their work.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think if you don't, then the what do you call that? Like attributing it to you or versus them, it gets a little bit dicey on like the legalities of it. So
Absolutely.
I think you should do it.
Yeah.
I think it's great. We mentioned Tick-Tock, which is a nut that many of us have not yet cracked. AR included. We're not going to dance here, people. Maybe we will. With our
We don't do
computers.
any dancing. Paige does try to get me to do cute, fun things, and I'm just awkward on camera.
Well, I'm just not. I can't be very silly. I can be silly like this, but I can't make fun of myself in a way like that. It's just not. I'm not that gregarious or outgoing or whatever. I'm so embarrassed about myself all the time.
Yeah.
But what
Awkward.
Awkward. Yeah. We're nerds. We're awkward. But what are you doing on TikTok? Because I hear it's like an education, like it slays the game for education. How are you using TikTok in your practice?
Man, Paige just changed it. It's all Paige. Paige does all of our TikToks. And she's in clinic with me every day, and she's getting content. So most of our TikToks are of me injecting, and then, I don't even know what the logarithms is. She knows all that, but like, she'll pick the great song that everybody's following, and it'll just blow. I mean, we had one blow up, and it was like 1.5 million views within a couple of days, and we're like, what? That's just so crazy. And it's just, I guess, finding the algorithm and giving the content that people want to see. So I could post cheeks all day, but they want to see the lips because it's such an immediate change, and it is really transforming. And then they can see the immediate before and after. And what I always say is, it's hard to get people to come in for my 2-week follow-up when their lips are healed and gorgeous. So if they look this good right off the needle, that's impressive. And that's what all of our before and afters are like that, especially on TikTok, because then they see it in the video and they're like, a good one we always try to show, like, this half is done and that half is not done, not in a photo, in a video. You can't edit that. So being real on TikTok, I think, is real and entertaining, I think, is what's capturing the audience.
That's just it. It has to be entertaining, which is a whole different, for those of us who've been doing LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is a huge thing in our industry, which whether you love LinkedIn or not, it's not going away. even Instagram, it's not nearly as fun. Now there are some hilarious people like Talks Josh who have like funny,
Oh my gosh, I love
hilarious
him.
things. But I think TikTok is truly entertaining, and I'm just not very entertaining. But we ought to have Paige on here to give us the algorithm.
I
Like,
know. Paige is the deal.
tell us how to do this thing. But as you think about even I'm going to say it wrong, like Patreon, the training site where people can pay to watch your trainings. You think about building your training organization, scaling it. Have you thought about putting things online yet for people to access your knowledge from, let's say Arizona or New York or wherever they are?
I have had actually a lot of people emailing and asking about if I have anything that they could even like pre-training. Do you have something online or some videos that I could watch? And that's why we're talking about that book would be great. But I really want to, it seems so nerdy, but yes, we're nerds. I'd love to have like a little workbook quiz thing to where something simple, but just so they can get the anatomy down and know the muscles and all the, the SMAS and all that and get that part. I think if you have that fundamental, I would leave the actual technique to in person. But I think that would be the one thing I'm missing in my training.
I think that's where the cadaver labs have blown up so much. Look at Chris Sirk, his lab.
Yes.
People are doing it. We're having one at Aesthetic Next. I think people are so hungry for anatomy education right now in the marketplace because they're learning. And you can throw a rock and hit an injector who's training. And now whether they're all good, I'm going to say we all know that that's not true.
Right.
They're not all created equal. But I think good anatomy training is not nearly as accessible. And so I think to your point, getting a good anatomy foundation before you go to a live injector training, if you're a new injector listening to this, is critical. Because when you guys talk about things, medically speaking, you talk about things in medical terminology. And if you're a new injector who's coming into this, and that's not really what you've been thinking about, let's say neonatal, you're not thinking about things like the SMAS and, the ligaments and all the things that we talk about in anatomy with injectables. You got to hear that, understand it, and then translate it into injecting, all in the same like 10-second frame.
Absolutely.
It's just too hard. So I think you gotta nail that thing first.
Yeah, and the regulation is so. I remember talking to the nursing board and the medical board when I was looking into getting into this, and I, being the nerd, I wanted to know like what is, and they literally said it's like the Wild Wild West. It's too new. There's not a lot of regulation. And then I actually I'm getting my FNP. So I have my NNP, but I'm getting my FNP. And I was talking to the director of a nursing program. I won't name her, but I mentioned to her like there should be some kind of an NP position for an aesthetic injector. And she was like, that will never happen. And of course, I was like, I'm going to have that program and I'm going to show you. That's my thought. Like, you tell me I can't do it, I'll do it tomorrow.
Well, that's a part of it. We had a physician on a month or so ago who was a plastic surgeon talking about when you're in plastic surgery, if you mention you want to go into aesthetics, they laugh at you. They don't take you seriously. Yeah. And there really isn't a program in America that's in plastics that has an aesthetics non-fellowship version, like a residency in aesthetics. Right. Nursing programs for sure don't have it. And until as all things in medicine, until the MD-DO level kind of complies with it and says, yep, this is a real thing, to get it to trickle down to PA school, to NP school, to even RNs being able to do it, it's like virtually impossible. Yeah. But think about our industry. It's so heavily dominated by NPs right now, PAs and RNs, and there's nothing, no formal training of any sort, no certification. We have CANs, obviously. If you're a PA, tough luck, you can't take CANs. Yep. And if you're not part of plastic surgery, dermatology practice, again, can't take CANs. Right. So there's like this massive gap. And I think enough nurses need to band together to say we have got to have a certification or a level or a credential or something that we actually learn in nursing school or come out and do a fellowship. I mean, we could do the same thing as a fellowship. But yeah, no one's taking us seriously yet. I don't know why.
No, because it's definitely a need. It's absolutely a need. And every time a new nurse or nurse practitioner comes to me about training, they're like, what certification did you get? I didn't get one.
There isn't one.
There isn't one. You don't need one. Your nursing license covers you, but you need to train a lot all the time. Even though I'm a trainer, I train with somebody every 3 or 4 months just because it's changing. Every time you turn around, there's a new technique. We just got this new product out. Everything is changing. So you can't, once you stop learning, you've already like behind the pack.
I was thinking last year we've had all the RHAs come out. We've had a new Versa Lips. We've had Kiss and Contour come out. Sculptra is ever evolving on the consensus label and how we use Sculptra. In a given year, we've had like 9 indications for the FDA.
Yes.
I mean, we've had chin indication come out. Like that's in 1 year. Give me any other medical specialty where you have 9 to 10 FDA indications that come about in 1 year.
Yeah.
Like it's just not even, it doesn't even happen.
No.
No one, orthopedic surgeons saying we have 15 new knee implants coming along this year. Like, it's not a thing, but in aesthetics, it's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
So, well, that's your charge. When you
I
stop building, band
yeah.
together a group and let's take
Yes.
this thing head on.
Yeah, I already know exactly who I'm going to call.
Well, I think about this from you as a business owner. So, as you think about your medical directors in the states that you're going to, how do you tell somebody that they're all trained the same, that they're all at the same level of, I shouldn't say risk, but we've all trained the same. We have adverse event training. We have, we've done our certifications. We've taken so many hours. I think as a medical director coming on with your company, they want to know that too, right?
Absolutely.
They're probably scared, shaking in their boots of like, is this chick taking a weekend course or is she able to inject? Like,
Right.
give me the level of risk as a med director.
Yes.
So how do you kind of combat that and tell the med directors what they're up against?
So with the training, we have a select, they have to do this many lips, this many cheeks, this many dysport before I sign them off, so to speak, and feel comfortable with them. And not everybody gets to do everything right away. If you're truly a new injector with no experience, you're not even bookable for the advanced services because you're just not there yet. And I think that makes our consumer feel more comfortable as well. Because I'd rather, as a consumer, have somebody say, no, we're not there yet, but you can go with this person because she's got more experience. They're going to feel more comfortable in being safe at our office as well. So it goes the same thing with our medical directors.
Yeah, I think that I always say that the biggest risk, if I was a medical director in this industry, is everyone thinks that they're really good, that they're all trained and ready to go. They're doing tier troughs on day 4. It's a scary place to be. And as a business owner, the risk is on you. As you know, it's like
Absolutely.
that's a very wild, wild west place to be.
Yes.
The medical boards always say if the opioids ever get figured out, that crisis, and aesthetics is next.
Yeah.
So we're next to opioids and risk for the medical board, which is pretty sad to hear, but because there is no regulation.
No.
Like, we're kind of all
and
doing our own thing.
your CEs, you have to get the continuing education to apply for your nursing license every, I don't know what it is, 2 years or so. But if you're working in aesthetics full time and then you're going to get these other CMEs that don't even have anything to do with your actual profession, that's something that's missing as well. Why did we not have that? But it's because it's not like a recognized part of our nursing, like you're saying.
Yeah, it's not. We don't think it's real yet. People. It's been here for 20 years.
I'm
real.
like, it's real. It's a big business
and
here.
the person who's like, oh, we don't have that, probably has Botox and filler all on her face. She's like, oh, that's not a real thing. I'm sure she's, she's partaking in our products. If
Absolutely.
You will. Well, thinking about you as a business owner, as you scale, give us just an idea. We've talked kind of about medical directors and training. What are the things that you look back on now in your journey and think, oh my God, what was I thinking? How could I have ever done that? That was a boneheaded move. Things stick out. I have so many of them in my own personal life. I'm like, I don't know how to narrow that down. But what are big mistakes that or that you see people who you train and work with, external injectors making that you're like, oh gosh, just trust me, don't do that.
I think trying to offer too many services at the same time. I think, that would have been, I think that's a bullet I dodged, actually. It's not an actual mistake I didn't make, but I wanted to make it, and my medical director wouldn't let me. So I'm thankful for him because he was like, no, you don't want to do that. You're going to go under because I want to get the lasers and all that. So I think for me was not learning to delegate soon enough. I feel like I could even be further along in this situation if I would have been able to delegate so that I can duplicate faster. But other than that, just I've made so many.
Haven't we all?
Yeah.
I like this idea, though, knowing your roles. What do you tell patients? Because I hear people right now in my mind, chattering, saying, but Tiffany, all of our patients are asking for laser, and if we don't give it to them, they're going to go somewhere else to get their filler and their toxin as well. How do you combat that or tell patients, we don't have it here and good luck. We're not going to get it.
Well, I always send them to Dr. Ho, Beyond Beautiful. So it's kind of like I more or less speak of it like an expansion of our business because I do work for him. So you can come see me at this location for those services, but that's kind of a unique situation that I have with him. I'm very fortunate for that. But I more or less focus on this is what we're really good at. And I say we're like a boutique style med spa. We're not a big med spa. We're not trying to be a big med spa. We're trying to be lots of great little med spas. So.
But you mentioned Vuho. I think what you have is not crazy unique because I think you could do that if another location could do the same kind of thing where you get a really great referral agreement worked out. Another plastic surgeon, whoever it may be, that has devices that says, "I'm going to give you my people, And in exchange, you're going to send them back to me for their filler and injectables. Or if you have the same thing and you don't want to do it, you send them to me as well. Because a lot of surgeons don't inject, right? They don't have any desire to inject. They're not going to do it. They're not going to open up a med spa in their clinics, but they will do the more invasive lasers. They'll do all the surgery stuff.
Right.
I think if I'm you, that's a genius thing to do. Is go find
Yes.
your bestie in the marketplace that doesn't do what you do and formalize a relationship.
Absolutely. Yes, I agree.
And now, do you do that in other locations too? Is that what you'll do next?
I will, but we haven't done that yet. But I will, mainly because in those markets, I don't have a relationship like with a plastic surgeon yet. And the reason that it works out so well with Dr. Ho at Beyond Beautiful is because I have worked for him, so he's comfortable with me. I trust him. He trusts me. We have a great friendship. He knows I'm not over there trying to bring clients back here. And often I'll say, well, I'm there on Thursdays. So if you can't get in with me, just book there. I could do your lips there, But yes, most plastic surgeons would rather not be doing injectables because it's not their bread and butter, and it's not their expert. So, and in my office, someone will come in for a tear trough, and I'm always like, oh, you need to go see Dr. Ho because you need a breath, upper and lower, and he's the best.
He's going to have to sponsor this episode when we're finished. But I think it is a big thing where the community part of our industry, you mentioned in this one episode, you mentioned Kim Welch, you mentioned Shelby Miller, you talked about Julie Horn, Consultant Clinic. You're learning and growing your own, business savvy based on people who are doing it, who've come before you and who've already learned it.
Absolutely.
And I think that there's an isolationist mentality where I'm so scared if I talk to another injector, they're going to steal my idea, or they're going to copy me, or they're going to try to sabotage me on purpose. You're not facing that. You're openly doing it. So how do you seek out people to be your mentors and to help you along the way?
I think a lot of people get annoyed with this slogan, the community over competition, but it's so true. And I talk a lot about Kim because she was my very first mentor, but she said that to me, there's plenty of people around. There's plenty of clients for me and for you and for you and for you. And there's no reason to have that competitive nature because we can all learn from each other and we're peers, right? So when I have a question, I can text Shelby and be like, hey, what's this complication? What should I do? And it might be a couple of hours because she's super busy in her clinic too, but she always responds because we have that friendship and mutual respect for each other. And I think that that's just key in our business. And I think that's what's going to actually create more of a safety environment in our industry is because you can ask each other. We don't have a regulating board. We don't have a certification course. So your peers who are learning and doing every day, that's our regulatory system.
And also, I think your referral system. I'm working with Dina Ben David, who works she does a lot of thread training, obviously, if you guys know her name. And, recommending people for panels and recommending staff, recommending estheticians for our track. She's given me a list of 50 people for our conference. Yeah. Because she's like, oh, they've all come to me. I've helped them with this. They've helped me with that. It's her network. Yeah. So I've gotten these incredible lists of names of people because she's worked with them directly. I feel like it's the same. If Kim had to refer somebody, she would say, oh, you got to go see Lindsay. Or Shelby, oh, you're in Texas? Go see my girl Lindsay. I think you build in this immediate network of people who trust and admire and respect each other where you don't have that if you never go outside of your own business.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm all about the community part of it. And now, are you giving that back? Are you mentoring other people? Are you working with other, besides just your own people, but other injectors who are outside?
Yes.
Or how do you become the Shelby and the Kim Welch?
Yeah, through the training. Training outside of HUSH employees. I do a lot of training for injectors, and inadvertently it ends up like kind of a recruiting thing too, because then they're like, well, where are you going to open here? Can you open one over here? I'm like, well, when we do, I already know you're great. So, but yes, I do. I love to educate. I could do it all day long. If that could be, I love to see my patients, but I really like to educate. So training other injectors, I feel like is my way of giving back because I've been so, blessed to have great mentors. That's the next thing. I want to be the next, their mentor,
I think you can make a case for it as a business need because you're now training folks who will eventually potentially become your employees in different locations, right?
Yes.
It's like you're almost like vertically integrated. You're your own recruiting firm, if you will.
Absolutely.
Does that work out for you? And does that actually happen? Because I feel like
definitely.
It should happen, but I don't know if it actually does.
Yes, it definitely does.
And then they're trained on your method from day one. Easy. So guys, if you're looking for a place to open up a location, go to Lindsay's trainings in office. Yeah.
And the thing is, it's like the branding's already done because I feel like that is a part of like a new injector wanting to go on her own, client base is huge. But even I think just as important is the structure and the foundation and the branding and the legal part and the accounting and the software setup and all of that, even just on the business cards and running a social media. Like that's the hard part of getting the business off the ground. And we do it. So it's already done by corporate. So the next location is all you need to do is hustle and get some clients in the door. We're going to take care of everything else.
Well, that's the part. Okay, so let's stop on that for just a second here. What I think you just said is the most important part of this entire, like our time so far together, is when you start injecting as a business owner, the injecting part is like the least of your worries. Like you should be good, we hope, just as like a general rule of thumb. If you're not good at injecting, don't open a business. Like that should just be number one.
Absolutely.
But what you just said, it's the SOPs, it's the consents, the questionnaires, the software, the accountant, that's the checklist that you need. Like that's the thing that to start a business, you need all that stuff.
And like when I started, I can't remember her name. I really wish I could give her a shout out, but she had a consulting type business where she tried to help me get like compliant and everything. But it was like this packet of stuff. And as a new in the industry and a business owner and an injector, I was like, what? I was so overwhelmed. And it's taken me 3 years to just get those things worked out. So like that's why I say if I was to start all over, if I was back at square one, I would have to think really hard if I was ready to give another 3 years of my life to making a million mistakes and paperwork. Yeah. So, but yeah, no, that part is done. And that's the part that most of us don't like to do.
Well, if people I've interviewed who are business owners, they all say, boy, wouldn't it be great if I could just be an injector again? It's like the pie maker versus, the person who owns a pie business. And Josh said this, I just mentioned this last week on an Instagram. He said, I got into this because I love to inject. I don't love to run a business. I love to inject. And I think as you become more successful as a business owner, you get to inject less and less because you're too busy scaling, growing, training other people. Your focus becomes on all of running your empire, not injecting your favorite client, Jane, who came in this week to get her toxin done. Because that toxin costs you money, frankly. You spending time in the room with Jane costs you from doing a legal meeting with your attorney or, other things that are really, really important. So it's almost like a negative. It becomes like a negative to have to treat at a certain point, which I think is hard for a lot of people because they love injecting. And
finding that balance. Absolutely. That's that. And I've always said that will be the hard part moving forward, but I don't delegate as much as I should because I want to know every inch of my business. So when I hire Sarah to do whatever, I know exactly what Sarah should be doing. I know exactly what parameters we need to be watching if it's going to be successful because I've already done it. But once that's done and I can find the people to do those other things, then I can cut back and I can have, maybe even like 75-25 injecting and 75 running a business. Instead of right now, it feels like 100 and 100.
Yeah, doesn't it though?
Yeah.
And then being a mom too, like having to be home to be a mom. Like I have to tell you, I know there are like tonight I have hockey practice and I've got to stop working at 5 o'clock to get there on time, and I need to do a million things. And so as soon as I get him done with hockey practice, I'm going to come back and work again because you got to fit these things into your life. It's definitely not a cakewalk.
No, it's not.
And you don't get rich. You don't get rich quick.
No
chance.
No. And somebody said that to me one time, like, oh, you're rich. You have all these businesses. I'm like, I'm not. Not in the beginning. You have to like every single nickel you get, you might be able to take one, but you got to put 4 more back into the business for the greater of the business long term. But when it comes to like the personal stuff, I have such a great, my mom and my dad, and well, she's our nanny, but she's not a nanny, she's our family. But if I didn't have them, I couldn't do this because I know that if I don't get out, because also when you're injecting, sometimes you get behind. So I can't just say, sorry, I got to cut it off at 5. Your lips are half done. But I know that if I'm not there, and I've automated my home. Like everything is automated.
Oh my goodness, you are a nerd. I love it.
It
Tell
is.
us more.
I mean, like, even something as simple as Cozy. I use Cozy Calendar and everything that my kids do is in there. So I had to do that to eliminate all the calls and texts from my mom and my dad. Where do we need to be? I'm like, check Cozy. It's in Cozy. Everything is in Cozy. So it's like a whole nother part of my business is running my family because I don't want my boys to suffer and not suffer, but like I don't want them to feel like they have to be held back and can't do some of the things that they'd be able to do if I was just at home. So that for me was a very important part of balancing is to make sure that they don't have to sacrifice more than they do. And right now their sacrifice is time, like with me, but it's short term.
But for you as a business owner, what is next for you besides obviously opening new locations? We know that that's going to happen. But from you learning, growing, developing, things you want to get into, what is your like dream goal for HUSH long term?
I want to be international. I want one in London. I do. I love London. It's like my city. I love it there. And we do have some things in the works. I have a connect there that's kind of helping me figure out who to get the legal part with. But yeah, I want to be international.
So we're going to look for that for you going international. How fun would that be, though? I think international is an awesome opportunity.
Oh, so fun.
And they have 55,000 more products than we do. So you could get everything first there, learn how to use it all there. And then when it gets approved in the U.S., 10 years later, you'd already know how to use it.
That's what happened with Kiss. Because when I went to train with Julie, she was already using Kiss. So when it came out, I was like, I got it.
Look, I'm an old hat. I think
I got this.
But I think it is true. As we got Contour, recently this past week, I think it's called, Volume in other markets or Voline, depending on how bad you are at saying the words. But they've had it for a long, long time. So we had a guy on a few weeks into our podcast. He's like, I've been using it for a long, long time. Like, he's in South Africa. He's like, I've been using it forever. It's like, you guys just now are getting it. It's an amazing product, but we've had it for so long. And I think that's the cool thing about being international. You get all the trends way early, not because we don't have them here, because they're not as good, but because we just don't have the products as early. We have
Our
to wait
FDA
so
approval
long.
is harder to get past.
We have to wait forever to get anything here. But those guys who go international and who learn, like that's Julie. I think about Julie. I mean, people went to her like you did and learned and came back, and all of a sudden she was already huge, but now she's even more huge. And Kiss was such a success because Julie Horn had been using it and talking about it forever.
Yes.
And it really helped.
I mean, it was marketing already done.
Yeah. In-house, built, done. Okay, so international's for sure happening next. What about for you, like with your boys and life, and what's next for your kids?
Oh, I mean, in a dream world, I would say I could cut back, but I will.
Well, any last words about how you're surviving in aesthetics, how you're making it all go? You said a great support system.
Yes.
Learning to delegate, which none of us know how to do, not any of us at this point. You're automating your life. Any other last words?
Just to keep it fun. We have a good time at work. And that's, like I said, when I build relationships, because I talk to my clients and we joke and we laugh and it's fun. I like to go to work. I look forward to going in. It's not work because it's just like my life and it's things to do that I like to do. And I love to talk with other women and I love that relationship. So I think mostly is just not getting so bogged down by the mistakes that we make, right? Because we're business owners, we're perfectionists, right? And we have a hard time delegating. So it's like a double whammy because when we mess up, we know it's our fault. So I just try to keep it lighthearted and try not to get stressed out. And I try to leave work at work as much as possible.
Oh, say that. Before we go, how do you do that? Give us some advice.
I have to change my mindset. I just have to and I know because a lot of my clients are my friends, and so they have my personal number.
So they're everywhere.
So they're texting me at 11:30 at night about an appointment that they can't get. And I used to be like, oh, let me respond because I don't want to be rude to my friend. But then I learned, actually, my friend who does my hair told me, she's like, I will not respond. I'm like, oh, I've done that to you. I'm so sorry. But then I realized, oh, okay, no. She's like, I don't respond, but do not disturb on my phone. So if somebody's texting me or Instagramming me, they'll get a response in the morning when I'm working again. Right now I'm at home.
Well, I get emails and texts and things on Instagram, DMs, Facebook from clients all the time who need help. Yeah. They want me to do consulting things or, how do I change this consent online or my policy's wrong. Teach me how to do it. Can you send me a video? I'm like, would you call the CEO of a company and ask the guy at Walmart to help you figure out how to go shopping? No, you wait till business hours.
Or you go to the chat that you have online.
Or you go to chat. I think
it's easily accessible.
But I think the problem with our industry, it's not a problem. Problem is a bad word. I think the beautiful thing about our industry is that we are all so connected. And the lines between friends and work become very blurred because you are in each other's lives so much, whether it's because of the software or because you've got other injectors everywhere who need things from you. People sometimes forget that the same rules apply to our lives that would apply to if you were going to Best Buy or, wherever else you're going, that sometimes work is done. So I've been trying my darndest to say, weekends, no email.
That's
certain
good.
Things. If it's a crisis, they'll call me. If it's a true crisis, someone will call me. But I'm trying to not get caught because I'm the person who, if I open my inbox, I won't stop till I've gone through the whole thing and answered it all, fixed it, tweaked it, done it. And then you're like, then it's 5 hours later, and you're like, it's Saturday at 2, and I've sat here and done emails for 5 hours.
Exactly.
It's not good for me. So.
And my brain always works. So I go home and we do dinner and get them in bed, and then I'm laying in bed watching TV, and I'll think of a million things that I want to tackle the next day. So when I text, I'm like, don't read until the morning. And then I'll send the next text because she knows that this is all the things she wants to talk about. Then I don't have to worry her at night, but it's off my mind.
Yeah, that's me with Slack. I'm like, don't respond to this because it's 2 a.m.
Yeah.
But here are all the things that are keeping me up.
Yep.
For tomorrow.
Yep.
Well, I feel like you and I are wired very much the same way.
Very much.
So good luck. I'll say prayers for you. That's all I can tell you is I'm going to pray for you a lot.
Yes.
But for the record, you have been an awesome guest
Thank
today.
you.
Thank you for coming to our humble abode to see us.
Lovely, yeah.
And I know that you're going to have incredible success, and I can tell your passion for what you're doing, and that you're invested in it mentally, with your heart, with your mind. And I can't wait to see what happens next for you. And I'm going to come visit your location in Frisco.
Yes, come see us.
So tell us when Dallas is going to open. Ballpark it for us.
Fall.
Okay. And the same for Atlanta?
Yes.
Fallish?
I think probably Atlanta first, because I have the people in position there. We're actively looking for a location there right now. And then, so probably September for Atlanta and October for Dallas.
Okay. So coming on very, very,
if
very
I can
soon.
hold off, because like I said, I'm like, oh, let's just do it now. But I'm like, I'm trying to have some patience and just pause for a second, get the others going.
I don't blame you. Give it a moment. Well, tell us how to find you. Tell us your website, your Instagram handle, all the things.
Yeah. So hushmedspa.com is our website, and hush_medspa is our Instagram and TikTok and Facebook. My personal one is aesthetic, Lindsay_aesthetic_NP.
Okay. So Lindsay_aesthetic_NP.
Yeah.
So give her a follow, guys, and go see what she's doing and all her various fun things. Her Instagram is like, it's every headshot. I mean, my God, you take a beautiful picture every single day. I'm like, how can she have so many freaking headshots? They're all so perfect.
Thank you.
I need to find her photographer, like staff, and get on their books because they're really, really good.
Yes.
But we have had a great time having you here, and I can't wait to see what happens next for you. So we look forward to it.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
We will see you guys next week. Thanks again. Bye, guys. Thanks for listening to another episode of For the Record. This podcast is not intended to provide legal or medical advice. It's for entertainment, education, and information purposes only. For more information on this week's guest or to get started with Aesthetic Record, email us at info@aestheticrecord.com. Be sure to tune in next week for more fresh perspectives on disrupting the status quo and surviving in the aesthetics industry.